The tension that would later shake Osun State College of Technology began like an ordinary day on campus. It was December 2021, the closing weeks of the semester. Students were rounding up their final exams, packing their bags, and looking forward to heading home for the holidays. The atmosphere around the school was mixed with excitement, relief, and the usual end-of-semester rush. That evening, after one of the final examination papers, hundreds of students trooped out of the school hall, eager to find their way home. The sun had begun to set, and the cool evening breeze swept through the campus. Everyone wanted to catch a ride out of the school before nightfall. Inside the campus, a small yellow bus was parked near the school gate. It happened to be the last available bus heading out that day, and because of that, students rushed toward it from every direction. The scene quickly turned chaotic, bags were flying, people were pushing, and voices rose as everyone tried to squeeze their way in. Among the crowd were members of two rival student groups, the Buccaneers and the Black Axe. At first, it was just normal pushing and shoving, but soon, words began to fly between both sides. Someone stepped on another's shoe, and an argument broke out. What should have been a simple misunderstanding turned tense in seconds. One of the Buccaneers, visibly annoyed, exchanged harsh words with a Black Axe member. Other students around tried to calm them down, but pride and ego wouldn't let either side back off. Before long, the argument became louder and drew attention. People nearby began whispering. Everyone knew what could happen when members of those two groups clashed. Then, in the heat of the moment, one of the Buccaneers threw a punch. That single action turned the entire scene upside down. What started as a small argument now turned into a physical struggle between members of both sides. Bags scattered, students screamed and ran away to avoid getting caught up in the commotion. Security officers later arrived to restore calm, but the damage had already been done, not physically, but in spirit. The confrontation had drawn a clear line between the two groups. Each side left the scene fuming, making strong remarks and subtle warnings about what would come next. By nightfall, word of the clash had spread across the campus. In hostels, cafeterias, and online group chats, students whispered about what had happened and wondered what might follow. Old rivalries had been reignited, and everyone knew how quickly such misunderstandings could grow into something much bigger. That evening's incident would go down as the spark, the very beginning of a long and tense confrontation between the Buccaneers and the Black Axe confraternity within the walls of Osun State College of Technology. It started with a simple argument over a bus, but as history would later show, it would lead to something far beyond what anyone had expected. After the clash that happened that evening at Osun State College of Technology, tension quietly began to build behind the scenes. The members of the Black Axe were deeply offended that one of their own had been publicly struck in the face before the fight broke out. To them, that single act wasn't something that could be overlooked or taken lightly. Within their circle, there was a long-standing belief and teaching that had been passed down through generations of members, a belief that once you become one of them, you are no longer just an ordinary man. During their initiation, every member is told that they have now become what they call strong men. In their world, being a strong man meant that no one was allowed to humiliate or physically challenge you without consequence. It was a role that had become part of their mindset, something they took seriously and personally. So when word spread among the Black Axe members that one of their brothers had been punched in public by a Buccaneer, anger began to grow like wildfire. Some saw it as an insult to their entire group, not just the person who was hit. Others felt it was a test of their pride, and if they failed to respond, it would be seen as weakness. In contrast, the Buccaneers seemed to have moved on from the incident. To them, the altercation at the bus park was a misunderstanding that ended once everyone went their separate ways. They believed the matter had died naturally and that both sides would go on with their lives. For a brief moment, things seemed quiet again on campus. But deep within the Black Axe circle, quiet meetings were already taking place. Their focus was on one person, the Buccaneer who had thrown the first punch that day. His name was Escobar, a well-known figure on campus, respected by his peers and recognized for his boldness. Unfortunately, that same boldness had now placed him in danger. Not long after the incident, members of the Black Axe began moving around the campus, quietly searching for Escobar. Students who saw them noticed the tension but didn't dare to ask questions. Everyone could feel that something serious was brewing. When they eventually found Escobar, the moment turned sour very quickly. They confronted him on the spot, and before anyone could intervene, the situation got out of hand. By the time things settled, Escobar's life as a Buccaneer had come to an abrupt end. His sudden passing sent shockwaves across the entire campus community. News of what had happened spread rapidly, from the hostels to lecture halls and even beyond the school walls. Students who had nothing to do with either group began to panic. The fear of what might come next filled the air. Classes were suddenly half empty, and social gatherings became tense. For the Buccaneers, Escobar's death was a heavy blow. He wasn't just another student, he was one of their own, someone they had shared moments and memories with. Many of them felt that the matter could no longer be ignored. That single event marked the real beginning of what would later become a long and bitter conflict between the two confraternities. What started as a simple disagreement over a bus ride had now grown into something much darker, a cycle of revenge that would take years to calm down. The campus would never remain the same again. Fear walked the halls, whispers filled the air, and everyone knew that what had just started was far from over. 2 years passed after the tragic fall of Escobar, the Buccaneer member whose life was cut short following the clash with the Black Axe. For a while, it seemed as though time had buried the incident. The school had moved on, new students had been admitted, and the old stories of confraternity rivalry had begun to fade away. To many, the campus had finally returned to peace, but underneath that calm surface, something was still burning. The Buccaneers had not forgotten. Even though time had passed, the pain of losing Escobar still lingered deeply among them. His memory lived on in quiet conversations and late-night discussions. Some members believed that their group's pride had been stained and that doing nothing meant weakness. Others thought it was best to let things rest. But as history has shown time and time again, in the world of campus brotherhoods, old scores rarely stay buried forever. It was sometime in 2023 when whispers began circulating again. This time, it was the Buccaneers who were planning to make a move. Their target was a well-known Black Axe member on campus called Odex. He was outspoken, confident, and believed to be among those who had celebrated after Escobar's passing. To the Buccaneers, he had become a symbol, and striking him would send a message. One afternoon, Odex was said to be within the school area when he was suddenly ambushed. Shots were fired in his direction, and in seconds, chaos broke out. Students nearby ran for safety, screaming and ducking as confusion filled the air. When the noise settled, Odex was lying on the ground motionless. For a moment, everyone thought it was the end for him. The Buccaneers who had carried out the act believed the mission was complete. Unbeknownst to many, these men were not students of the institution. They had come from outside, carried out their task, and quickly disappeared before security or authorities could respond. But the story didn't end there. Against all odds, Odex survived. He was quickly rescued by his fellow Black Axe members and rushed to an undisclosed hospital. The news spread like wildfire, with different versions of the story filling the air. Some people claimed he didn't make it, while others insisted he was clinging to life. For weeks, no one could confirm what was true. Then, months later, a short video surfaced online, a clip showing Odex alive, speaking softly from a hospital bed. His appearance was weak, but his words were firm. That video instantly went viral among student and confraternity circles across several campuses. It confirmed what many didn't expect: Odex had survived the attack. The Buccaneers were shocked. What they thought was a completed mission had turned into an embarrassment. Members of the Black Axe began to mock and taunt them both on and off campus. They referred to the Buccaneers as amateurs, saying it took them 2 whole years to plan their revenge and yet they still failed to achieve their aim. For the Buccaneers, this mockery was a bitter pill to swallow. And for the Black Axe, it was an opportunity to boast and reassert their dominance. In their minds, surviving the attack proved that their power and spiritual protection, as some of them called it, was still strong. But beneath all the mocking and laughter, there was a growing sense of unease. Everyone on campus, students, staff, and even outsiders, could sense that things were far from over. Retaliation had already happened once, and another could easily follow. This was no longer just about pride or revenge, it had become a long and dangerous cycle, one that would keep the entire campus community on edge for months to come. The storm that began with a simple argument over a bus was now spreading far beyond what anyone had imagined. The battle for supremacy between the Buccaneers and the Black Axe was clearly entering a new chapter. The survivor of Odex, the Black Axe member, shook the entire Osun State College of Education. His recovery and reappearance online changed everything. Within the confraternity circles, it was seen as a major victory for the Black Axe and a humiliating setback for the Buccaneers. The campus became divided with silent tension, no open confrontations yet, but everyone could sense that something serious was about to happen again. A few weeks later, the uneasy calm finally broke. The Black Axe, still fueled by anger and determined to prove their dominance, decided it was time to respond. To them, the failed attempt on Odex's life was an open challenge, one that demanded an answer. Their members began to move in groups, watching closely and gathering information about known Buccaneers around the campus. Then, on a particular day, members of the Black Axe Hit Squad, as they were often called, made their move. They entered the campus quietly, blending into the normal student activities going on that afternoon. No one suspected that anything unusual was about to happen. As they moved through the school grounds, they eventually spotted one of their targets, the young man who was said to be among the leaders of the Buccaneers in the institution. He was known by many students because of his confidence, charm, and stylish appearance. Despite his involvement in confraternity activities, many people described him as a friendly person who got along easily with others. But that day, his luck ran out. The moment he saw the group approaching, he immediately realized who they were. Without hesitation, he turned and began to run, trying desperately to get away. The sound of his hurried footsteps echoed across the open space as he dashed through the school path, hoping to find safety. Unfortunately, he didn't get far. The group gave chase, and within moments, they caught up with him. Before anyone nearby could react or intervene, the situation took a tragic turn. The Buccaneer was overpowered and taken down at the spot. When the news spread across campus later that day, shock filled the air. Many students couldn't believe what they were hearing. The young man, who was well known and admired by both friends and classmates, was gone. Some said they had seen him earlier that day, full of life, smiling and joking as usual, never knowing it would be his last moments on campus. The story quickly went beyond the school walls. It reached parents, local communities, and even other institutions. People were heartbroken. Many couldn't understand how someone with so much potential, so much life ahead, could end up losing everything because of involvement in a confraternity. That incident served as a painful reminder of the dangers that come with cultism and campus violence. The rivalry between the groups had once again claimed another young life, leaving behind sadness and regret. In the days that followed, the mood on campus grew heavy. Students moved quietly, lectures were half-filled, and security presence increased around the school gates. Fear and sorrow replaced the usual laughter and excitement that once filled the college environment. As the story continued to spread online, people began to speak out, calling for change and awareness. Many said the same thing: enough is enough. They urged students to stay away from confraternity groups, no matter how attractive or powerful they may appear. The truth is simple: no one truly wins in such conflicts. At the end of the day, lives are lost, families are broken, and dreams are destroyed. Let this story serve as a lesson to every young person: say no to cultism. Say no to crime. Say yes to peace, education, and a brighter future.